Hi, and thanks for tuning in to my presentation on cell phones in Pakistan and how cell phones in Pakistan were really able to leapfrog the technology of landlines in the United States and other such developed countries that have been developed from some time. Landlines really took a hold of homes in these countries from the late 70s all the way through the early to mid 2000s. But this wasn't the case in Pakistan. Really, in Pakistan, cell phones have always been the prime telephony, which is a word that just talks about, talking on the phone. So I'm going to be using that word a couple of times in the presentation, but landlines have never really been the main version of telephony used in Pakistan by the general public. It's really always been cell phones, and in this presentation, I plan on going through that a little bit. We're going to start with the, excuse me, with the history of telecommunications in Pakistan. There are really two companies that play into this large: the PTCL, also known as the Pakistan Telecommunication Company Ltd, and the PTA, not the one you're thinking of, but what's known as the Pakistan Telecommunication Authority. The PTCL was organized around the time of Pakistan's independence, a little later, but around the 1960s, and it was originally organized as a telegram and telegraph company. And that's how far behind telecommunications were in Pakistan at the time of its independence. But this went along, and there wasn't really any innovation on the side of telecommunications in Pakistan until the PTA came about in the 90s. And with the PTA came a government-owned monopoly that was a local telephone service provider. This had a lot of flaws and a lot of limitations. And the limitations mainly were is that the cost was just too prohibitive for the general public to use. The wealthy in Pakistan could use it, but the cost of both installation and talk time was just crazy. Talk time sometimes went as high as $5 a minute, and that's just not accessible to those of us in a lower wealth class, as Pakistan, especially in the 90s, showed huge economic disparity. And so that's really just a brief history of telecommunications and why Pakistan's first try at a landline system didn't work, was because the PTA had a monopoly in Pakistan for landline usage, and they just really did not make it accessible to those in all classes. And if something isn't accessible to those in all classes, as we've seen time and time again in innovation, it doesn't work. But now let's talk about innovation. There's one key player in this. Well, excuse me, there's two key players in the innovation in Pakistan. One is called Paktel, which is the first company that was ever granted licenses to carry out actual cellular services in Pakistan. And this company was later acquired by Millicom, and which the Paktel version of Millicom was then acquired by China One for a lot of money. And Paktel and Millicom was really this company that was just focused on getting out these cheap, usable phones and plans, and they were a benefactor of a government project called UF1, which was put into place by the former Federal Minister of Science, Adur Rahman. And it was the state-owned mobile service that had just competitive rates, and it drove competition. Not only did it have competitive rates, but they installed cellular cellular infrastructure just to make cellular very, very accessible, as they didn't do with landlines. And so Paktel was really a benefactor of the work that UF1 did. And as part of his reign of being the Federal Minister of Science and Technology, this man Adur Rahman also introduced this feature called CPP, which is the calling party pays feature. And that was, it cost no money for someone to receive a mobile call, which was huge, because those of us in the poor class or those of us with family abroad could not afford to have these, just to accept these mobile calls. And so really UF1 combined with CPP introduced just accessible mobile experiences to us. to our brothers and sisters in Pakistan. And WhatsApp, which is a company now owned that was acquired by Facebook. WhatsApp was a company as well that introduced cheap and free phone calling and texting. But where are we now? Today, these numbers show that for every 100 people in Pakistan, 73 of those people own mobile devices, which totals to about 144 million people. And only one out of every 100 people own or operate a landline-based device, which totals just about 3 million people. And those are just numbers that can't be argued with and show that Pakistan really never had a reliable landline infrastructure. And right now, they're the third fastest growing mobile consumer in the world. And here's my bibliography, which is where I got my stats and my information. And this will be provided in the things I upload. Thank you very much.